homework, your other homework, weekends you will spend with your SAT preparations, and pretty much your life is set. Right? That's what we are doing, I think almost all of us. But it is like still a structured routine. When you enter the college, all of this structure is you just put it out of the basically box. You have to do your own time management. And how do you basically convey that you are good at time management skill is the one that Brown is definitely looking for when they evaluate them. It's not just the Brown, but most of the colleges, they are looking along with the GPA how you are managing your time management skills. So one caution to parents, if the students are here to students, don't nag your children too much that this is tomorrow is your exam, you have to do AP preparation, how many hours are you spending with your essays, how many hours are you doing. So no micromanaging, let them learn from their own mistakes. So the review factors. So essays, GPA, test scores, extracurricular, course rigor. So those are the factors most of the times are basically considered when anyone does the application review. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Friday. So Friday you want to talk more about course rigor. What exactly is course rigor?
So course rigor is basically just like the difficulty of the classes. There's obviously like normal like high school level classes, honors classes, and AP classes. And I kind of wanted to touch on what you're talking about like GPA. I do think it's a big indication of, it's not an indication of how smart you are, but how much work you really put in towards your grade. So if you have like a high GPA, but then your classes are like pretty like standard level classes as opposed to someone who took all AP or honors classes. I feel like that definitely shows a difference in the amount of work you put in and overall says something about your ability to manage course load with the other commitments of being a high school student. So that's pretty much all I have to say about class rigor. Rigor is definitely important.
Thanks. The next one. So course rigor. So Trini little bit touched upon it. So we have heard of it, single source of truth. So your high school transcript is your single source of truth. Whatever is the GPA written on the high school transcript is the GPA you are going to submit to your colleges. So if you compromise that GPA, you have to have a solid explanation about it when you are trying to go for the higher achieving colleges. Your GPA is 3.4, you are applying to DU, you need to have that explanation that why your GPA fell down. And yes, so colleges will consider if it is not a fabricated story, but it is a genuine story. If you have some unfortunate events in the house which has affected, if you are a high school student, first timer from the generations of your schools, then they will definitely consider. So fortunately, unfortunately, I say unfortunately for most of the Asians, college admission has become little tougher and tougher because, any guesses?
Everyone is like a high achiever.
Yeah. So actually, the other day, one parent called me. He said, "Hey, me and my wife both did PhDs. So I guess our students will have a good chance." So I said, "It's basically if you see right now in the current condition, it is disadvantage to your student. If you say we just barely did high school, then he would have better chances in getting into college. That's the unfortunate reality that we are looking at." If you've seen the UCs have published this year's data of the college acceptances, you can go on any of the Google, just search UC acceptances rate. The tagline that they've mentioned is we have the highest acceptances of in-state students. And then there is a asterisk and then the fine print. So do you know what the fine print is? Exceptions. So what are the exceptions? American Indian, Latinos, Africans, other genders, all those first timers college goers. So those are the higher in acceptances versus people like us, right? So our community, we are contributing to the state dollars here. It's a tax season, so I'm just basically making it out. We are contributing to the community, we are contributing to the state dollar. On an average, we are a well-to-do community, very education-oriented, correct? But now that is not the way to just evaluate and just send out your application. So So when you submit your application, be very, very smart when you submit your application. So don't be very emotional while submitting the application. So SAT and ACT, those are the two tests generally that students will go through. Have you heard the thing that yes, UC is test blind? We don't have to give the
Yeah.
SAT if they apply
Yeah.
to UCs, right?
Yeah.
And how many of the students will say, we just want to get into UC, so why to bother about giving the SAT?
Yeah, many.
Some kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Some kids say that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you known that if your English SAT score is more than 700, you get a 1 year of GE credit?
No.
Is that true?
Yes. So these are the things you have to fight for, these are the things you have to go. So
Whoa.
not your school counselor, not your college counselor will also come out and say this. You have to go and talk to the college counselor because you cannot put in your SAT score into the application. So there is no way
Yeah.
now you can put the SAT score in
There's
the
no
application,
space.
correct? Once you get into UC Berkeley, you have to go to UC Berkeley's admissions department. You have to tell them, hey, I have given the SAT. This is my SAT score. Can you give me 1 year of English credit? They can say mostly yes,
Oh.
because there is no other way. Probably they will not even go. Some of the things you have to go and fight for it because on the face they will immediately dismiss you and say no, we cannot do it. Now let's talk to Pawan. Sorry, I know Avanti, Trini and Pawan. Okay. So let's talk to Pawan and we can ask him how he prepared for SAT and SAT.
Yeah, so, okay. Everyone preparing for the SAT right now, if you are, I know it's a terrible experience, but towards the latter half of my preparation, it was almost like a formula. So there's like, you can very easily like put in the hours and like up your score. It's not like an unattainable goal to get, like 1500 plus. You just like put in the hours and you can see the results. So I'd encourage you to like keep going with that. And it's, like I said, it's literally like a formula. So no need to like see it as a daunting task. It's very like, in the realm of possibility that you can get the score you want to.
Okay, when did you start preparing for the SAT first time?
I started pretty late, so like end of junior year, like summer going into senior year. I kind of spent that summer focused on SAT, but I did it like 2-3 times a week, so consistency is definitely important. And I took it like a couple times and got the score I wanted. So.
Good. So did you try Pawan digital SAT or were you the part of before digital SAT, right? Probably.
Yeah, I was taking the written one,
Okay.
but I looked at the digital one and it seems like, it honestly seems easier. There's less questions. It's only 2 hours. So I would say like, even more reason to like go and grind the SAT.
Correct. Yes.
Do you have experience of ACT as well? SAT versus ACT. Can you go over a little bit?
Yeah, so I actually took both. I didn't like the ACT as much. It's a little bit faster paced, so if you like your time, like if you like to take your time solving problems, I would suggest the SAT. I think there's also an extra section on the ACT, like a science section. I don't know, for me, like, I would say like try both and then just pick the one that you like and then stick with it.
So you should go for either one, not for both.
Yes. So colleges across USA now accept either one, SAT or ACT. So as Pawan was mentioning, ACT is out of 36 points. SAT right now it is changed. From last year it has become like a digital SAT. So if you know GRE, GMAT, they are called as an adaptive test. So SAT also has become like an adaptive test. Easy to get 1600, easy to get even 1100. And why I'm saying easy to get 1100, you basically overconfident because you say, hey, it is just 800 math, 800 English. There is no penalty if you miss the question. The digital adaptive meaning based upon your first question, your next question is going to appear.
Ooh.
So that's called as a digital adaptive test. The little difference between the written SAT and the digital SAT is the question, the way they frame the questions is little harder. So it's not that kids do not know their algebra formula or geometry formula. Most of the times they don't know how to read the question and which formula to apply, and that's where they lose the time. So whenever you are asking students to prepare for SAT or the students who are preparing for the SAT, general recommendation is in the first round, do not even worry about time and all those things. Just get the knack of reading the questions in a game and then just try to answer it. That's about the math. English is pretty much the same. So if you've seen the first digital SAT happen in March, and most of the students who are confident that they are better in math and they don't know English, the score turned out to be the other way around. Their math score tanked and their English score was comparatively good. So the extracurriculars. So we touched little bit upon the extracurricular activities. Clubs show your leadership, passion and consistency. Volunteering, try to volunteer either one of the organization, not for the sake of getting the volunteer hours because some school asks 20 volunteer hours to graduate. But you should volunteer just because of your passion. If you like, so the again coming back to the, remember the first slides about the pencils, right? Stand out. How many of you say that if you want to get into the medicine, which are the top 2 volunteer activity you should pursue?
Hospital?
Or anything else?
Shadowing in a with doctors or something.
No, volunteering.
Volunteering.
Yeah,
Okay,
going
so-
outside, like going India.
Okay, going India, hospital volunteering, shadowing a doctor. Anything else?
People do that.
Old age homes. So unfortunately after COVID you cannot go to old age home for volunteer nowadays. They will only ask you to be in the front desk but not actually interact with the patient. But see, out of maybe 60 people, if 5-6 are saying these are the top activities to get into the medicine, again it falls under the model of, I would say, cookie cutter model. I don't know, Avanti, which is your major to pursue?
I'm in biology.
Okay, so you want to elaborate a little bit on this?
Sure, yeah. I think one of my biggest findings when I came to Stanford, where I go now, is that a lot of the pre-medical students didn't follow the formula, which is like 200 hours at Kaiser Permanente or something like that. They all went out and found like a research lab to work at in high school. They found something to kind of change their profile up. So I don't know that there's necessarily one distinct answer if you want to go into medicine, but I do think it's about showing the values of a doctor. So that could be like research, that could be volunteering. It doesn't necessarily even need to be like medical volunteering. It just needs to be something that shows as a doctor you're going to increase your communication skills. Like for me, speech and debate was actually a big part of my story of wanting to go into medicine. So kind of like that. Don't follow the cookie cutter, definitely.
So since you
Okay.
are at it, Avanti, can you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So as we transition into the panel, my name's Avanti. I just finished my second year at Stanford. I'm going into my junior year, and I'm studying human biology with a concentration in medically informed public policy. So I'm both in the law space and the medical space.
My name is Trini. I also just finished my second year, but at UC Berkeley. I'm a cell bio major, pre-med, and I'm considering a minor in public health as well. But yeah.
My name is Pavan. I just graduated UC Berkeley as an electrical engineering and computer science major. Yeah.
What are your aspirations, Pawan, since you graduated? That's it.
So in Berkeley, I was kind of involved in the entrepreneurship community. So kind of like trying to start a company of my own. Going that route is something I would like to do.
Okay, awesome. So we'll have the questions specifically to the panel in 5 minutes. So the essays. So essays is a bigger and the biggest part of your essay, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Have you noticed the difference that UC do not call their essays as essays, but they call it as PIQs? So what is PIQ?
Personal information questionnaire.
Yes, so it's called as personal insight questions. And I attend the UC conducts their seminar every year during the September 2 days. It's a seminar hosted for the counselor. The 3 years back when they transitioned from the basically personal statement or personal essay to personal insight question, we had a 2-hour session deliberating that why that was the transition and why they do not call it as an essay but they call it as a personal insight question. So what was happening when they called it as a personal essay, the students were writing it like a very, very abstract and they were thought that this is my like English essay. So let's just impress the admission officers with vocabulary. Example, right? So if you want to talk about tennis, so you will not just start, hey, I love tennis, but the background or basically the base was green rushes grass, the sun was gazing at me and then I had a bat in my hand. All those intro was there and then they will get into, oh, I love tennis. So the admission officers were really getting frustrated because they were not able to get that what exactly you are trying to say. Think from a very human angle. So what they are trying to do through all your applications, your GPA, your SAT score if it is there, all the numbers are pretty much done. So before the admission officer review your application, they get a cheat sheet and in the cheat sheet they will have a couple of your basically numbers. Which school you go from, what is, if your school is giving rank, what is your school rank in the school, your GPA, your SAT score. So those are the factors they already know. Application, extracurricular activities, all those things you can tell them that this is the club, this is the volunteer, this is the research. But how will they know that who Avanti is as a person? And these are the 4 essays, so not the essays. So personal insight question are the avenues for them to really tell them that hey, I am Avanti but I like speech and debate because speech and debate is maybe public forum. In the public forum, maybe Avanti says I like public policies, something like that. So whatever is your basically strengths, your weaknesses, do not shy away to talk about your weaknesses. They have one prompt which says, did you basically had any challenges in your life? So challenges cannot be I had to get up 6 in the morning to go to school. So that cannot be a challenge. And I am not making up these things. So students do tend to write all those things that hey, my mother feeds me a lot. So that is the challenge. So these cannot be the challenge. The challenge has to be real life challenges that you want to talk about there. Another thing about the challenges or the things, it doesn't have to be closed looped. You can say that I experienced XYZ challenge and I'm still going through that challenge because we are all human. We are not up there yet. These kids are 17, 18 year old. So it's okay to say that I experienced something and I'm still getting over it. That is becoming too human and connecting to the admission officer. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask because the panelists are here. If not, on your behalf, I am going to ask them the questions. So I want Avanti to talk about what was your common app essay topic, if you remember. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I think for me, I really resonated with what Auntie was saying about being willing to talk about challenges you faced and also just the reality of your life. The thing is, you submit your resume to the college, right? Essentially, through like the activities section in the Common App. So your essay shouldn't just go through like everything you did that you think is an achievement. It should be about what they're not seeing from your resume. And so for me, I talked about how growing up, I kind of fostered this interest in medicine by witnessing my grandfather be a urologist in India, and I also went through my own like health issues growing up. And even though obviously I didn't challenge and face anything close to someone who might need like a kidney transplant or something, I talked about understanding the problem with the lack of access to care to medicine in India and how I witnessed that firsthand and how as like a person in the US, I know it's like a privilege to have access to care and I want to play a part in that. So that's how I kind of started it. And then I went into like the fact that I did a lot of different extracurriculars all over the place. I did like speech and debate and robotics. I sang for a while, like I had kind of a story that I needed to connect. So I talked about all of the different ways that those things impacted my life. How speech and debate gave me a voice, how robotics allowed me to explore like working with my hands and kind of doing things with a team and growing that ability. And then how singing and other things were a big part of like, again, growing my independence as a person. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I used.
Thanks. Can you talk about UCPIPs? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I want to talk kind of about the tennis example you used because one of my PhDs was about tennis. But I completely agree with Auntie that colleges are not looking to see that you can write such a good obviously it has to be a coherent essay, but they can tell that you're proficient in English by looking at your English grades. They don't want to see you analyze the metaphysical aspects of a tennis ball. But what you get right from writing an essay, for example, about tennis. For example, I wrote about being team captain at my high school, and I think a lot of people just write something like that, right? They're like, I won lots of games, and that's really impressive. But the thing is, all of that stuff, like Avanti was saying, is already on your resume. That stuff they already know. I think how you would spin that is writing about how maybe that was a challenge for you being a leader for the first. That's what I wrote about, how challenging it was being in a leadership position, how that forced me to change myself, how to make myself a better, a more suitable person to lead the team. And my other PIQs were about speech and debate, which was like Avani was saying, finding my voice and being more assured in myself. And I sort of connected all my PIQs together to this theme of trying to be a more confident version of myself. And that's the type of person I would want to even grow towards in college and forward.
Awesome. Can you hand? So Pawan, I'm not asking you about the essays because it's been a while for you. But can you talk about Berkeley and its atmosphere? Most of the students, if you say, they try to hesitate applying to Berkeley because they say it's too competitive.
I think Berkeley is a big enough school to where you can find your group of people. So it's not always those people chasing the grades, chasing the scores. I was kind of worried about that going in. It's really big, 36,000 students or something on campus. So they're not all like that, I promise. Yeah, I'd say it is competitive, and that is good. It did make me want to push myself, so I appreciate that, just passively being there. But in terms of having fun, there's definitely outlets to do that too. I was part of club tennis at Berkeley, great community, kind of to get away from all the academic stress and all that. So I'd say don't use that as a fact not to apply. Definitely consider it. Go visit it. Beautiful campus. Yeah.
Another question for Avanti. So one debate that I always have with parents is, since you go to Stanford, so parents try to weigh, right, pros and cons. How much money you to spend on the Ivies versus private colleges for 4 years versus, so the logic that parents have, yes, if you go to Stanford, you pay maybe 80K per year for 4 years. So is it okay if my son or daughter does maybe undergrad from any other college and then do probably masters from Ivies and those colleges? So pros and cons, because from the parents' perspective, we look at the dollar value. Apart from that, do you want to add more?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the way that I view it is that there's no use in not trying for an Ivy League or private school. I think the opportunities that you get there will be really great, and I think that you'll have access to things that you might only get in a master's program, like the labs, everything. You're in a much smaller school if you're in a private school, so opportunities are just flowing everywhere. But I also think that it's also just not attainable. All of college admissions is kind of a toss-up at some point. It is a little bit of the luck of the game after you've played all your cards right. And so if you do end up going to undergrad at another amazing school, UC Davis or something that Indian parents will coin as less valuable, you can always move up for your master's program. So it's a reason to not give up in your undergrad. But I don't think that's a reason not to try. I think it's all about the ROI, the return on investment, and I think at a private college, that ROI, you're spending way more in your undergrad, but you'll get more out of it. And a lot of people in my undergrad will not go to a master's program. They'll get a really good job right out of undergrad. So you might end up paying the same money anyway, no matter which choice you make.
Perfect, yes. So Avanti put it very nicely. The way I say it, maybe UC Berkeley, UCLA may have this tattooed for lifelong that yes, I am UC Berkeley alumni, I am UCLA alumni. Most of the colleges will not, after 15-20 years, will not say that the students, right, graduating, they will not probably say that I am XYZ alumni. But Still today, even if the 60-year-old will proudly say, I'm the Harvard alumni, I'm the Stanford alumni, I'm the Yale alumni. That's what I generally say. Look at the, like, since most of you are parents,
Over a
I would
period.
say, look from the college money that you are spending. Think very wisely. College is not very generous and have that grand vision of just giving danam to students. No, it's a pure business for them. So when they admit your students, they are also trying to see that which kind of alumni we are creating, so that they can say, right? Purdue today, after I don't know how many years, they still say Neil Armstrong graduated from Purdue. They have a huge statue of Neil Armstrong still there. And that's basically for them one of the ways to get funding. So similarly, tomorrow Avanti will, no matter how old she gets, she will always will say, I am the Stanford alumni. But we will not see the same pride from any other colleges rather than Ivies and private colleges. Another is the access to the network that probably you will find. You are in second year or third year? I finished my second year. You finished your second year. So the access that the Stanford or other Ivies that provide, most of the other colleges may or may not even provide. So you get into a very basically niche community, and their brotherhood, sisterhood bond is really, really strong. So if you see a Stanford grad versus some other grad, it's not just because of the merit, but because of that name branding also people will prefer it. And as she said, if you graduate from Ivies or private colleges, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, probably you may not even have to go and pursue the masters as well. Yeah.
Which of these factors that you showed us adds more weightage to the scholarships? Is there any particular thing holds advantage over the other?
From this?
Not this one, in terms of the other factors.
So the scholarship in general, there are different ways the scholarship. For UCs, the Regent Scholarship is the terminology, probably you may have heard of it. So UC offer Regent Scholarship. Regent Scholarship varies as less as maybe $2,000 up to you get a full rate. So different upon Dean's Regent Scholarship and all those things, you will get the scholarship. Your application, when you submit the application, you don't have to do anything extra. Your application will be evaluated for scholarship as it is. Along with the college specific scholarship, there are tons of private scholarships available out there. The easiest one to find is through your zip codes. So, have you heard of San Joaquin County and Mountain House, which is a newly developed area? So that developed area is still, it's unincorporated. So pretty much it's considered like a farm area. So even though no matter what the community lives there, that particular zip code can apply to the county or the state level scholarship system.
Wow.
So try to find scholarships in your particular zip code and see if your zip code is eligible for that scholarship. That's basically the kind of like a easy money, I would say, to get into it. And then there are scholarships which are based upon some of the things that you do. You may write an essay, you may do, so Coca-Cola scholarship, Google scholarship, these are the things. So Pawan and Trini, have you applied to any of the scholarships?
Before my freshman year, I didn't apply to any like county scholarships, but I applied to the scholarships that the UCs offered. For example, Berkeley offered this like leadership scholarship award for like $2,000, and it was pretty like, I wouldn't say it was super competitive. You just have to like find it, and they'll interview you, and they give like quite a bit that you can apply to. You can apply to it every year too, so you can get that money like every year. But
I didn't really apply to too many on the side, I would say, but I think like Berkeley gave me like some scholarships for the first 2 years, like just from like high school stuff. But I do know people who are like spending lots of time, like months, like just scraping the web for different scholarships and applying to every single one. So that's also like, I guess that's something you can do if you're still up to it after you finish your college hours. There's definitely a lot out there, I will say that.
How about you? Did you apply to any scholarships?
I was definitely in the boat of like a little bit tired after applying to colleges, especially because I got into Stanford early in December. I had not much of an incentive to apply, But I do think there's a lot of money to be saved in like smaller scholarships, and I'll also tell you that Ivy Leagues and Stanford and other private universities do not give merit scholarships themselves, because everybody who goes there will be at like a similar level of merit. So that's probably where it's actually better to look for those kind of side scholarships. But if you go to like a UC or something, the school itself might provide a lot of good scholarships that you can apply for, if that makes sense.
Yes. So scholarships, another thing, you don't have to wait till your senior year to apply to scholarships. You can start searching for scholarship as early as your freshman year. So the way some of the private scholarships work, if you, let's say, get some scholarship in your freshman year, it will be saved with the person who's giving you the scholarship, person or the institution. As soon as you go to college, it will be directed towards your college, XYZ college that you choose, that scholarship will be routed to you. But you can start accumulating that money as early as your freshman year till you apply to basically till your senior year. As Avanti said, by November, everyone is fatigued with all the college application admissions. After that, they are like, we are done. We don't want to even apply to colleges which are in January. So January colleges, I feel pretty much it is like, okay, because parents are saying let's apply. But there is no heart into the colleges which come after their December break. So try to finish everything, even though your deadlines are in January, maybe by December. But scholarships, everything, do it before you enter the senior year. Yes.
You answered. My question was like, how soon or like when do you need to apply for scholarship?
Okay. Another thing is how many colleges we should apply, right? So that is another question. So I would go one by one, and if you can tell how many colleges you apply and what was the criteria that you chose when you selected your colleges.
Yeah, I think for me, because I was wanting to go into medical school, I applied to like all of the UCs. Those are obviously super easy. It's just one application for all of the UC colleges, if you didn't know that. That you just choose which ones you send it to. But I also applied to schools that are called BSMDs, so those are where you get automatic acceptance into the medical school if you're invited into the undergrad. And so that was kind of a separate list as well. Those were kind of my main things. But again, because I got into Stanford early, I applied their early action, which is basically where you get notified from the school early on if you got in or not, but it's not a binding decision. That made it a lot easier for me to not have to apply to as many schools. I would definitely advise applying early to schools.
I also had my sights set on medical school after college, so I was kind of looking for schools that I know would like set me up best for that. Like they'd have the best counselors for medical school, the best opportunities. So I applied to most of the UCs, and I would say I applied to a couple like Ivies, a couple like out-of-state schools, which I know are like really good for medical school admissions. But that was pretty much my whole criteria for selecting colleges.
I'd say I'm kind of on a different boat, right? I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in college. So like part of me was like saying like go like the finance route, and then the other part was like tech route. So I kind of applied to like more colleges as a result, probably like 25 to 30. And I applied like finance, like East Coast colleges mostly, because like all the finance like target schools are over there. And then like likewise for like tech, like mostly like West Coast, like Bay Area, Caltech, those kind of things.
How many essays did you write in total?
I was just supposed to get to that actually. So after the first like 10 or 12, you realize you can start like reusing essays, not fully, but like you can take bits and pieces. So it's not as like, you're not writing like 30 different college applications. You're telling your story 30 different times with like a different twist, depending on what you're applying. So I would say like you kind of get like the passive income of like the work you put in before, like the more colleges you apply to. You get the like economies of scale, is that what it's called?
So since Avanti brought up about BSMD, how many of you know about the BSMD program? Okay. So it's an accelerated medicine program. Avanti, probably you may know about it a little bit. Can you talk about it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can just quickly touch on it. Essentially, BS stands for bachelor's, and then MD stands for your medical degree. And so when you get into one of these schools, either they don't make you take the MCAT at all, so you'll do your 2 years or like usually a shorter version of your degree itself, and then you'll do like 4 years of medical school. So some of the programs will only be like 6 years to get a medical degree, or 7 or even 8. But actually, that's very few programs. Most of them still require you to take the MCAT, but the cutoff score will be much lower. So if medical schools usually only accept students with like a 520 something MCAT, the BSMDs will accept you into their own medical school, even if you have like a 510 or above. So it'll be much easier.
So pretty much there are like two independent streams to get into the medical school. One is called the conventional stream, meaning you do undergrad in anything that you want. You can do undergrad in medicine and still get into medicine. Undergrad in music, still get into medicine. That is still doable. Most of us studied back in India, where we know, right? If you have the science, you only get into the engineering. If you have commerce, you cannot switch over.
Absolutely.
That is not the case here. So please, when you guide your students, don't constrain them with our thought process of whatever was happening back in India. Here the system is very fluid. You can do English undergrad, get into medicine. There are some things you have to do on top of that versus you do STEM undergrad, but it is still doable.
But the degree of preparation that you have to do is a little bit more.
Correct, exactly. But there are some students who have probably a late wake-up call. They go through 2 years of undergrad and then they will decide that, hey, this is not what I basically envision, and then probably they will switch over to something. Do you know the dropout rate of students from colleges? Any of you know? Any guesses? The students who drop out of colleges.
20%?
Yes. And in that 20%, there are Asians. So don't think that our students do not drop out of college. It's nothing like that. Probably they can tell that college is, it's not like all hunky-dory when they go there, right? So first and fourth thing, they basically get out of the shell. Another thing, most of our students who are in California, we feel that we have seen diversity, but we have not. And when they go into the college, it is like an open ocean, and that's where they really see the America, what America is, what diversity is. It's a good thing to talk about melting pot and salad bowl, but when you actually experience it, probably then you will know what exactly means the salad bowl is and which ingredient you are into that particular salad bowl. So these are all the added pressure for students, and that 20% is the dropout rate. What is the rate of students changing the major from one major to another? And when I say changing the major, meaning if they are into STEM, going to non-STEM, or from non-STEM to whatever it is. Do you know?
I was going to say like 40%.
Or, yes. So 40% of the students do basically change their major. That whatever their intended major, they will not, it's not a guarantee that that is going to be the major that will come on their basically degree. So that is another thing, please be aware of, and it is let them pursue, let them explore as well. So because we have a very limited knowledge about the curriculum, we have the very limited knowledge because of the way we have been brought up and we have been exposed to education. But the here education system is very, very fluid. If you have seen Steve Jobs' Stanford speech, have you seen that? Commencement speech. So in that commencement speech, Steve Jobs, he dropped out of college maybe within 6 months from Stanford. But just for the fun, he was attending the basically the classes. And the one class that he liked was the calligraphy class. And he enjoyed and he just attended that class. Eventually, when he designed the MacBook and everything, his calligraphy class, whatever he learned, that basically came in handy, and that's how basically the Apple sleek design and everything took place. So when they take the GE credit courses, do you want to give the example of any fun GE credits you have taken? If you have taken any.
I took a volleyball class, which is completely like unrelated to being to like my major. It doesn't fulfill any credit requirements, but I definitely took it just for, and I've never played volleyball before in my life. I just took it to be fun with my friends.
Yeah, I took a cycling class that my gym offers. It's like indoor cycling. I discovered I was never going to do it again, but it was definitely something. no credits either. It was just to enjoy myself in college.
I took a baking class, so there was definitely no credits for that one. They had us like bake something new every week, and then we'd have to like submit pictures and turn it in. So that was pretty fun.
So why did you take these kind of classes? Any particular reason?
Just
Or
for
to
like
your view?
a change of pace, you know.
Change
Don't
of
wanna be
pace,
looking at
correct.
the same thing all
Correct.
day, every day.
Yes. So that is basically the good way the Pawan has put it, right? So these kind of classes, they may offer you credit, they may not offer you credit, but they definitely provide that change of pace, that change of monotony, some stress reliever. One of my students who's UC Davis, he took the class of cow milking. He said, why you want to do that? So auntie, it's so fun. I just wanted to see how it's been done. So it's good, like so they have this flexibility here, and it's okay to let them just enjoy and explore these kind of classes. So, yeah.
I just wanted to add too. You know, like when you're in college, like you just pay the tuition for like the semester. You can take any class you want. So there's so many like skills, right, that they offer, which like when you graduate and you go into your job, you might not have the time to ever learn that or pick that up again. So while it's offered to you and you have time and you can make the most of it, I would absolutely say go and like do something productive, like whether it be baking or like riding a bicycle. Like these are like new skills that you can just pick up, you know.
Perfect. Any questions from the audience for three of them?
Yeah, did you try to save, like, take a lot of APs and save a year in a college, something like that? Like, I heard those
IB
stories a lot.
classes or,
Like, you take more APs than you save 1 year in college or something like that.
So
College
how
credit.
many APs did you take in school? Do you remember?
I always forget the number, but I think a lot. And I think the point is, and this is something I actually learned from my admissions file, they actually see how many APs your school offers when they look at you as a student, and they compare you. That's what academic rigor actually means. It compares you to like what your school offered. Because you can go to a school that doesn't have those classes and
Yeah.
max it out, and that's
Okay.
great. But you can go to a school that has all those classes and not take them, and then you don't look as good. So I took
Okay.
basically every one that my school offered, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
My school didn't offer AP classes. My school offered IB, which is I guess kind of the equivalent, but I pretty much took all that I could take.
Okay.
I think I did like 18 or 19,
Wow.
and I got saved by COVID a little bit, so I didn't have to take like 10 AP tests that summer. Or they were the shortened tests, so it wasn't like 3-hour blocks. But yeah, I pretty much just took all the school.
Okay.
So.
So there is, so the way Avanti has put it, so they definitely, so the admission officers, they have been assigned a district to review your application. So your application doesn't randomly go to any person. So generally from August till November or October, I would say, the admission, if I'm the admission officer and I've been assigned to Sacramento, maybe 4 or 5 districts, I can go to Sacramento district and I can talk to the counselors over there and see what is the school policy. Does the school give ranking? How many APs you have? How many IBs you have? Do you have the clubs during the lunchtime or after the school? Because all these things matters when the student pursue these activities. Another thing, some schools do not offer APs in 9th grade. Some schools have the cap of only 2 APs per year. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which year you are
Yes,
in.
yeah.
And they do not have the electives as well. So all this information is with admission officers. So when they review, it is with respect to the whatever is your school offering.
Okay.
So it is right, that the admission officer is reviewing. But think they are the fast readers. How many minutes they spend on your application?
I don't know.
5 minutes? Any guesses from any one of you? No.
Whoa.
So 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so 2 to 3 minutes. So that's all they will spend on your application. So don't expect that even though they know all this information, they have it memorized. So Common App is one application where Stanford, all the other private colleges lies under. UC is one portal where all the 9 UCs, and CSUs is another portal where there are 29 CSUs which falls under. So most of the students will go through all these 3 portals and they will fill in the application. Common App and UCs have a section called Additional Information section. How many of did you all fill in the additional information section? Yes? No? I know you may not remember it, but Avanti, do you remember what did you put in additional information?
Yeah, I actually used it to explain each of my extracurriculars a little more than, because the activities section of the Common App is like very few words. And I also used it to explain like my COVID-19 efforts. I did a lot of like volunteering and like giving out masks and stuff like that. So that was something to include there.
Okay.
I pretty much did the same. I think some schools just have like a dedicated section where you can like explain your activities, but then like if those schools didn't, I would kind of just use the additional information section to just like elaborate over whatever I didn't have space for in my normal
Okay.
application.
So the one way to use the additional information section is to elaborate more on your extracurricular activities. You spend 300 hours probably doing speech and debate, but how many characters you have? I guess 1,000 characters to explain whatever you have done. So 1,000 characters is pretty much 1.5 line. So to elaborate more, either sometimes students take the help of their essay or additional information section. Another is the additional information section about the school policies. Hey, my school did not allow me to take the 0 period. Right? So otherwise they will say, are you lazy to just take 6 periods or 5 periods? So you have to tell, my schools did not allow me to take 0 period. Sometimes now the schedule conflicts are happening because most of the students want to get into AP stats on their senior year, and now I see the complaints from the students that I am not getting the class even AP stats, even though 4 years of math is mandatory, they are not even getting the class. So what to do in that case? Admission officer is not going to know that because of the schedule conflict you did not get the class. So this is the section where you have to mention that because my school did not allow me to get into AP stats, I am pursuing it from outside or something else, whatever may be the scenario. But unless and until you explicitly mention it, there is no way for the admission officers to know. So more information is good, it's not going to harm you rather than just basically holding off the information. Yeah.
So, any of you that took AP classes during your high school are taking or repeating those same courses while you're doing your bachelor's? Because I understand not all AP courses and what you took in high school are equivalent
Transfer.
or accepted for that matter. So, did you guys need to repeat any of them?
So I think a lot of AP classes, they definitely can be used to substitute for credit. So I am retake, so I took AP Cal, AB, and BC, and I could have used that to skip my like 1 year of math requirement for my major. But for like medical schools, they want you, like they also require 1 year of math, but they want you to do that in undergrad. They don't like you using AP credit. So for that purpose, I'm repeating whatever I could have skipped with IB or AP credits. And I'm sure like I'm just probably doing the same. But,
I was just going to say that private schools are really bad about accepting AP credit. They really don't want you to like graduate early. So my school, I got like almost all of the classes I took my senior year would usually at least transfer in as like graduating units, even if they don't specifically fill a class, but they counted for almost nothing. So that is one reality, but you do still have to do them to show rigor. And even if you're taking the class again in undergrad, like it's so much easier because you did it in high school. My friends who did like AP Chem had so much better of a time in like general chemistry than I did. I only took honors chem in high school, so those are things.
I think it also depends on the like specific college you are within the university. Whether it be like engineering college or like letters and sciences colleges, they have different requirements for like which courses can transfer. I was in engineering, so they were pretty like, I pretty much maxed out on all the classes that I could transfer, and then the remaining credits were just like graduation credits, which I guess in a way they don't really count because you're going to graduate anyways. It's not like the credit limit is never like the limiting factor for you graduating. So I guess depending on like what you're interested in studying, you can pick and choose which AP tests you want to take.
So as I mentioned, right, college is business. So they don't want you to graduating early. Specifically the IBs and private colleges, they do not transfer out your AP credit, but still you have to take the APs to show that yes, you can handle the college stress basically. So when they say academic rigor, that's what they are trying to see. That are you capable of paying 80K per year for the next 4 years if I admit you. That's basically the harsh reality of it. UCs, most of the UCs do take the credits, but it again depends on the major that you choose. Sometimes now the UCs are also becoming little stringent with respect to transferring the credit because most of the students even try to graduate as early as 3 years.
Yeah.
Because they say we are transferring the credits, now tell us what else we need to do.
Yeah.
Right? So now the UCs are slowly saying that no, we cannot transfer all the credits as it is. They will say if you are doing the bio major, probably your AP bio, AP kids, then those credits will not be transferred. You have to do those again in college. UCs again, if you, I don't know if you have noticed, they are even slashing down your high school credit. So the Mines high school requirement is now pre-calculus. So even if you do calculus, AB, BC, statistics, discrete math, linear algebra and whatnot, probably you may have to do all those courses when you go to colleges because that is not now your high school graduating requirement. So those changes are now coming in the next application cycle. From 2025 onwards, a new course has been added into the UC graduation requirement. Anyone know? You have already done all this thing. So it's called Ethnic Studies. It's a semester-long course which has become a mandatory requirement from the California, any of the high school. To graduate, you have to do the 1 semester ethnic studies course. That course will be offered in your school, I guess, from 2025 onwards, or they may have already started as well in some of the school as pilot program. But that is the additional requirement. Now they will lower down your math and they will up all your basically non-STEM courses. So that's what basically the strategy is for UC applications.
What's your take on people doing associate degrees in the local
Community college?
and the community colleges and doing a lateral to university?
Transfers.
How effective?
2 by 2?
Yes, so 2 by 2, it's always been a good option. Unfortunately, Asians had a taboo. If I say I'm going to the community college, the first question someone will ask me, oh, you didn't get into any of the UCs? So that's basically the attitude that we had. And somehow in our mind we have that ranking that UC Davis is not good, UCLA is the best. If you go anywhere else, it's like, oh, your child did not do anything in school. So this is all pretty much our own doing. But now our community as well as students are also getting out of that mindset now. So most of the students are pursuing 2 years of community college and then transferring into any of the UCs. There are 2 ways to transfer. One is TAG program, which is transfer admission guarantee. But UCLA, UC Berkeley, San Diego, they are not part of the TAG program. And then there is a regular transfer, like you just try out to any of the UCs for the transfer.
And that includes LA, UCLA, and,
yes.
and all other, Berkeley.
So
and
all the 9 UCs or anywhere else you want to transfer, you can try out to the transfer.
And what is the difference in tag and the normal?
So tag is, it's a guaranteed admission that you will get into one of these 6 UCs.
Is a conditional guarantee or just guarantee?
Conditional guarantee because again everything has a fine print. You cannot say that everything is what it takes. You should not take it at a face value. Always read the fine print. So fine print is transfer admission guarantee provided. If you want to get into, let's say Berkeley, not Berkeley, but Davis biology sciences program, because Berkeley, Davis is known for that. If your GPA is under certain points, then only you will get a gap. So it's not like your GPA is 2.9 and it's a guarantee that you will get into biology there. So that's the fine print for the TAG program. But it is a guarantee most of the UCs will take. The acceptance rate for the UCs for the transfer is higher than the freshmen going into the college. So it's a good route, I would say.
Since we are talking about the community college and this is beside 2 by 2 question, so like now there is a new trend started that students take the AP classes, but during summertime they take like classes at the community college, and they get like transferable credit from the community college. Can you like little bit elaborate on that?
Sure. So there are two ways to take the transfer of the community college credit. Have you taken dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment classes?
I took like one of my history requirements in high school there. I think it's a good thing if you want to get like some of the general ed requirements out. I actually used it to fulfill a high school graduation requirement, not even like a college requirement, if that makes sense. But I also think that either way, like Shrini was saying, a lot of like the professional schools will require you to take some classes in undergrad anyway. So there's not necessarily like a huge advantage in taking like a ton of like math or like heavy STEM classes in community college. And also your undergrad can tell that the rigor of the community college class was probably not as rigorous as like that of like your undergrads. So it just depends. But I think like some like basic calc and stuff like that you could definitely do. But I don't know as much about like the higher division classes, if that makes sense.
I never took community college classes for college credit, but I know a lot of people who did, and I definitely think it's kind of turns out to be like a big headache because it's not like AP classes where you could say, oh, AP Calc would substitute for freshman year math of like 95% of colleges. You don't have to think about that, but for the community college classes, there's so many different, like you have to go to each college's website, see what courses are transferable. Like I've had a lot of friends who take community college classes and find out that their specific college, like that course is not transferable because it's not up to that college's standards. So I think it's just a little bit of extra work for something that's not going to have much of a return.
I also took like U.S. history over the summer. I guess in our school it's like notoriously known for like lots of reading, just a lot of time spent on one class. So I decided I would do it during the summer. Again, that was for like a high school requirement and not so much a college requirement. But even then, you have to be like careful which classes you take. Like there's two different versions of that class. One version counts and
Yeah.
another version doesn't. And you have to go like start doing this stuff early, like get approval, signature by your counselor all the time. Otherwise, like it's not going to happen, and then you're going to end up like taking it senior year or something, where you could have taken another class. Also, I wanted to touch on the like community college like transfer thing. What I've noticed in Berkeley, it's a very like rough transition for people who like transfer in, just because they're not used to how the rigor of the courses. Like it's different. The style of teaching, everything's like a lot of self-learning, self-taught. So the transition is rough, and I feel like they don't have time to be like acclimated, not just in terms of academics, but also in terms of like social life, right? You're missing out on those 2 years of friends that you would have made, and on like personally, I would like advise against the like community college route if you have the means to do so. But like from a financial standpoint, that's the best. But there's like definitely other factors that you should consider before going through with that.
That's a very good point. Thank you.
Has something to say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we're also at time, but I just wanted to quickly touch on like the community college idea that a lot of kids have is that it's the easy route, but I don't think that's like true in today's world. All of my friends who've done the community college and transfer, while they were in community college, they spent like the entire year working in a doctor's office after their classes. Or one of my friends graduated a semester early and then worked at a lab at Berkeley for like part of his time in community college and then applied to like the other schools. So it's not just like, oh, like 2 more years. Like people treat it like 2 more years in high school, just kind of like having friends and relaxing. It's not like that at all. If you want to transfer into like LA or Berkeley, you're gonna have to work just as hard, if not harder, because they know you have more free time in community college to like transfer into a bigger school. And you should prepare yourself academically. An interesting thing is that if you do go to community college, you can take classes at UC Berkeley and other UCs over the summers before you go to the actual college. You can even do that when you're in high school. So if you do want to see like, oh, what's a Berkeley class, like you can try that.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. So we are out of time. So just in interest of time, we just close here now. Thank you, Avanti, Trini, and Pawan. So please give a big round of applause to our speakers.
We are going to announce some of the winners of our Youth Achievement Awards. So if you're here for that, please stay. Just wanted to say that.
So I'll be here after if anyone has any question, but since the program is starting, we don't want to hold up the crowd here. So thanks everyone for coming and enjoy the whole day today at IS. Thanks.
Hang on a few more seconds. There are a few more seminars I need to talk about. But thank you for hanging out here for so long. Get out, have some fun, get a lot of food, but just a few seconds.